Hello, everybody. Welcome to another interesting and interactive session of Muskaan, an initiative of Prabha Khaitan Foundation and Education for All Trust, presented by Shree Cement Limited. Prabha Khaitan Foundation is an organization based in Kolkata, founded by late Dr. Prabha Khaitan. The foundation is dedicated to promote performing arts, culture, education, literature, gender equality, and women's empowerment. The Foundation's latest initiative, Muskaan, aims at popularizing heritage literature and culture among children and young adults by weaving it into formal and informal education through student activities. Some of the ways developed to do this are cultural programs, storytelling sessions, theater, dance, music, and art, which are organized via collaborations with our national and international associations and institutes both in India and overseas. Today we have with us Ms Shobha Tharoor Srinivasan, the author of numerous award-winning children's books, including In the Alphabet, How Many Lines in a Limerick, Prince with a Paintbrush, The Story of Raja Ravi Verma, It's Time to Rhyme, and the upcoming book from HarperCollins, Parvati, the Elephant's Very Important Day. Shobha is also a translator, poet, editor, voiceover talent, and former non-profit development professional who spent over 2 decades as an advocate for persons with disabilities. Shobha's voice has been used in documentaries, educational and journalistic initiatives, and audiobooks, both in India and the United States, and her essays and reviews have appeared in multiple publications, including India Currents, Scroll.in, Skipping Stones, and BizWorld. In conversation with Ms. Shobha is Ms. Damyanti Mukherjee from Calcutta. She is the principal of Modern High School for Girls, Kolkata. She has been involved with school education for the past 27 years, ever since she completed Masters in English Literature with follow-up of a teaching diploma. She has worked in national curricula, that is ICSC and CBSC, and international curricula, IGCSE, and International Baccalaureate at all levels across schools in India. Ms. Mukherjee is a TEDx speaker and serves the International Baccalaureate organization independently as a subject expert. A little bit about the book before we start the program. Parvati, the Elephant's Very Important Day. Parvati, the elephant, has an important role to play in the temple, and she's very excited about doing it. But sometimes unexpected things can get in the way of a crucial task. Will Parvati be able to complete the job that she has set out to do? Parvati, the Elephant's Very Important Day, shares a universal story about duty, responsibility, and success. Structured as a rhyming picture book, Parvati showcases Kerala temple traditions by narrating a day in the life of a temple elephant. Elephants, despite their magnificent girth and size, are gentle and highly intelligent animals who balance the ecosystem. These pachyderms have been preyed on for years and are in danger of extinction. So babies, children, this is the story all about. There will be a question and answer round for the session, so please feel free to ask your questions by raising your hand or putting it up in the chat box. I urge our audience to sit back, relax, and enjoy today's session. And one request to all the little children over here, please keep your videos on. Then ma'am will be very, very happy, right? Please keep your videos on, yes. So over to you, Ms. Damyanti and Ms. Shobha.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sumitra and Team Muskaan. And hello, Shobha. It's lovely to reconnect twice in a day. And I have your delightful book right with me, and it was such a pleasure browsing through it over and over again. But before we come to the book, let's talk about the author. Now, for those of us who are in this, adults who are in the audience today, the Tharoor name kind of sets out a presumption that writing must be part of your DNA. So how did it begin for you? That is the story that we are all eager to know.
Ah, that's an interesting and fun question, Damyanti. Curiously, it hasn't been asked before in the numerous sessions that I've been involved with. But first of all, thank you so much to Muskaan, to the Prabha Khaitan Foundation for finding me a wonderful interlocutor, one with whom I share an affection for both Kolkata as well as education. So I want to say thank you. And Shumitra, that was a very, very lovely introduction. My big appreciations. And children, it's great to be back here in this forum again. Some of you, the names look a little familiar and some the faces look familiar. So I'm delighted we get a chance to interact again. As far as writing is concerned, Damyanti, I mean, I don't know what generation you're from, but in the world that I grew up in, we did not even have television in Calcutta till I was a teenager. And so I grew up where books were my sort of go-to form of entertainment. Books, stories, elaborate narratives, listening to music on a radio or on those big LPs, dancing to songs, sharing stories, reading, writing. So writing was very much part of the Tharoor DNA as well as our family home structure. We hung out and played word games. We're big into Scrabble. So writing began at a very young age. In fact, I wrote a scroll-in piece during the pandemic in which I talked about the various ways we can entertain ourselves with words. And I won't bore you with all those details, but I started writing. I think the first time I was published was when I was a school child. I wrote a story about bunnies, probably in the tradition of Beatrix Potter or Enid Blyton or something I was reading at that time. And I think my father thought it was good and sent it off to somebody he knew. And I saw my story in print in the Hindu Sunday section supplement or something where they have a kids corner, a kids page. And, being published is a reward in itself. I think when you see your name in a byline, that's exciting. And so there begins the sort of writing career. Then I did Little Middles in Times of India and other places. Then I went off as a teenager to America as a student, and I continue to write. I used to write a weekly column in our college newspaper. And then I did, I have a master's in literature like you do as well. And after that, I worked 2 decades in the field of a different kind of writing. I did a lot of technical writing. I did grant writing. I did presentations before city councils. So, writing, reading has been part of my life. The children's books came, I think, when the children left home, and all those stories that I used to make up for them were in my head. And then I started putting them together. I've always liked rhyme, so I did a lot of poetry. That's where it all began.
Quite a few bits of your childhood actually resonate so much with me because it's kind of part of my growing up in Kolkata too. But then I didn't become a writer and you did, and glory be for that. And thank goodness, because they're still not enough writers for children, and with the kind of a vision for what a children's book should be. That kind of vision, not perhaps, there aren't too many people, and thank goodness you are one of them. So now let's come to your craft. So as I was going through your picture book, I saw that perhaps it's a longish poem of maybe 51 lines. And then I was wondering, did you write the poem first, or did you and thought about the illustration, or did this happen together? And how did this book happen? How did it all come together?
So usually, of course, the author creates the manuscript and then either pitches it to a publisher or an author is commissioned to write a piece of work because the publisher is familiar with them. I've had both of those experiences. In the case of the Parvati story, actually, I read a lot of children's literature. I'm a grandmother now, so I'm reading for my grandchildren as well. In addition to that, I'm always in that space. I read a lot, usually adult literature, but I have stories that I have to make up, stories in my head. This particular story came to be because I read that very sad story about an elephant that had passed away, and not to frighten the children, so we don't need to go into the details, but that was very much in everybody's consciousness. And I thought that, I could have used any animal to tell the story, but I wanted to bring back an awareness of elephants, this giant, gentle, entirely intelligent, wonderful animal that all of us have enjoyed. Whether it's your child raised in America or a child raised here, I don't know anybody who doesn't like an elephant. I've loved it. My children have loved elephants. We've had, we've had Colonel Hathi's match in the movie, the Disney movie Jungle Book. My little nephews used to dance to Colonel Hathi's march. Hathis are very, very popular all over, whether they're, seen in a zoo or seen in the forest. I was very fortunate to have done a safari to Tanzania, where I actually saw a lot of wild elephants in the herd, and and understood more, looked them up more, discovered that elephants are in danger of extinction. Today there are only about 35,000 Asian elephants in the wild. In Africa, it's a little bit more. I mean, it's about 400,000 African elephants in the wild. But because of poaching, because of climate change, because of various reasons, we are actually beginning to see the destruction of elephants. And, something that we took for granted in India, where especially if you ever went to Kerala on a summer holiday, elephants are crossing the street like a cow is crossing the street in Kolkata or in Delhi or anywhere else. We have so many elephants. It's part of our consciousness. An elephant is also the state emblem, the animal on the state emblem in Kerala. Here is a beautiful elephant, beautiful animal in danger of extinction. I wanted to share, by anthropomorphizing the animal, I wanted to share that animals think, feel, imagine like us, have the same fears, have the same wonders, have all of that. And that's so important. This is me as a writer feeling a sense of responsibility in what I write, because what children read today is going to inform them about what they are going to be later. So as adults, and how they think later. So these are all the reasons why I wrote the book. As I said, I wanted to share the story of an elephant, Parvati the elephant. Here's an image of it. I don't know if you can see that. Excuse me. For some reason, the video is looking a bit strange. Is that a whiteboard coming in? I'm not entirely sure, Damyanti, but anyway. So the story came to be because of all of those reasons, wanting to write a story, a simple adventure story. Children love adventure stories. So this is a little story about the life of an elephant, the day of an elephant in a temple. I also wanted to introduce temple traditions to children. The temple is incredible. The pageantry, the festivity of the temple tradition is very good. Pardon me, for some reason I have a frog in my throat, which is why I've been drinking a lot of water. I think it's allergy season in Delhi.
How was it? I'll just let you take a pause and to perhaps have a sip. How was it working with Tanaya, your illustrator?
Good point. Sorry, I noticed I didn't answer that question. The reason, so what I was going to say is, when children's book authors usually pitch a piece of work to a publisher, in my instance, I actually gave this manuscript to an agent that was was able to represent me, and the agents got me what I would consider one of the best picture book publishers in India, which is HarperCollins India. And so usually an author, unless they are illustrators themselves, do not select the author, the illustrator. So when you say, did you think of the illustrations first? Obviously I had a vision for the poem, that is true. I really wanted it illustrated a particular way, but I'm delighted to say that Tanya Vyas, who was HarperCollins find, is an incredibly talented artist and has done a phenomenal job with this book. So we haven't met, we've only met online. I was in California while the book was being produced. She is in India or wherever she is. And she shared some pictures with me. Most of the time I said, this is exactly how I visualize the scene. What's interesting about a picture book though, Damyanti, is as children's book genres go, a picture book does give a great deal of importance to the visual illustrations as well, because this is specifically for children of, under the age of 8 usually. Of course, in every book, I feel that I like to leave something for the adults, for the teachers, for older children as well. And we can talk about that later. But as far as the visual element of this book is concerned, the illustrations can advance the story just as well as the text for children who can't read. So if they're being read to by looking at the pictures, they can follow along on what they're hearing. And so that was very important. And Tanya's done a wonderful job of that.
Absolutely, because when I was browsing through the book, I was thinking that two people coming together, creating this lovely, lovely picture story, and it is seamless. Because at times it's your words which lead to the lead the eyes to the pictures, and at times because of the illustration, one wants to turn the page and read what is written next, what's going to happen to Parvati,
Exactly.
what's coming up, that kind of a thing.
You're absolutely right. And that is the picture book format.
Absolutely.
And my other books are different. So, we have all of that.
Yes. And when you mentioned about, this extinction, and this is something that our young audience, I think, are also aware of. Most of them nowadays are very, very, they are actually green soldiers themselves. And, they are so aware. And I wanted to tell them, once I visited Sri Lanka, and there is an elephant orphanage near a place called Kandy. And they let you go and give the elephants a bath. They are mostly victims of some kind of a mistreatment and accident. And children, school children in Sri Lanka are also encouraged to come visit the orphanage, spend some time, and that is how empathy grows. And it is very important for children to be connected. And your choice of this particular likable Hathi Mera Sathi of our time kind of a conjunction is really, really lovely. So now my next question is that at the first glance, this looks like as though it's meant only for children. But is that strictly true? There are certain elements, certain words, and certain ways of pulling the emotions and bringing out a message. What would you like to say about that?
Thank you, Damyanti. Yes, I think as a children's writer, it is true that even though this is a picture book for a particular age group, by the author's note that some of which, Sumitra was able to read from as well, I have presented to you what I'm doing. So if you are an adult reader, if you are a teacher, if you are an educator, if you are a conservationist, I have answered some of your worries, queries about mistreatment, about festival traditions, so that you understand that, it is only in bringing animal and child together that the child forms the bond. In hearing stories that we form those connections. And so by making this connection, they will become stewards not just of the planet, but also of animals. And they will become the, responsible citizens who even, we want to say, people talk about, you always hear there are outliers in terms of stories. You hear the bad story before you hear the good. You hear about cruelty to an animal. You hear about the use of chains, or you hear about, they're, not being fed properly during festivals, or the use of firecrackers. And I've talked about it in this story. So these elements are there. But as long as these festival traditions continue, it is important for us to acknowledge the animal, to understand it, and then have children involved both in the story and in the storytelling and in this narrative about animals, so that when they go, they're more informed, they're more educated, they're able to participate, to question, to say, is this elephant getting what it needs? And I think that's what makes us all sort of responsible citizens in some ways. And by starting early, we're doing something very, very special. So I think, this book, when I write a book, I do write I'm not writing only for parents, but I'm also not only writing for readers. For little readers. I am genuinely, all of the books that I've written are supposed to sort of live with you, something you can turn to, something you can learn from. That is the way I've seen my role as a children's writer. So thank you for picking up on that. And I've introduced, as you said, I've introduced a number of new concepts, new instruments, Kerala temple traditions, and we even have a glossary where all of you can learn a few Malayalam words.
Absolutely, and this is exactly what we need in the field of children's literature. It's not just the story element, it's not the narrative, but it's all that gets packed into it, and there is a kind of a conscious message which is well hidden, but it's there, and it can be just brought out, and it can be explored at leisure through adults, through children, revisiting these stories, maybe, when they are a little older, and they would remember, oh, I was in class 2 and I read this lovely story about Parvati the elephant. Let me go back and check. Was there something, as I'm doing a unit on environment in school, was there something there? And this is something that, will be your legacy for, so many children who I'm sure would be going through this book. So it brings us to this interesting temple festivals that you mentioned and you have captured in your book, Purim. And this is about a homage to goddess Kali or goddess Durga. And interestingly, your protagonist, your main character is also Parvati, another name for Durga. So is there a connection? Was this conscious? Why did you choose?
So definitely, first of all, the Purams, the Puram is sort of like saying Pujo rather than Durga Puja. A Puram is sort of a temple festival to a woman, a female god, and usually Durga, Kali, whatever manifestation that particular village or town has. The most famous of our Purams in Kerala is the Trishul Purim, which just ended in May, and it's a hugely attended, very, very crowded. It's like a Kumbh Mela kind of festival that was quiet for 2 years during pandemic. And this year they had this, drone pictures of sea of bodies that you could see with elephants, etc. Now, in the temple tradition, though, there's a lot of wonderful, exciting pageantry. And so I didn't necessarily want to talk about the Trishul Puram. We're talking about a Puram, a festival which uses elephants. Now, in Kerala, I must say, elephants are not only used for the Hindu tradition, okay? It's not only in Hindu temples. Elephants are the elephant is on the Kerala state symbol, and elephants are used in mosques, elephants are used in churches. People use elephants for all kinds of festival gatherings. And a lot of the costumery that I describe is these elephants are dressed in those for wherever you are. So it crosses religious lines. I'm not trying to sort of lump it into any particular necessary tradition, except this is a story of a temple, so I had to talk about that. And that's the first thing. And the second piece of it is, you asked one more piece. What was the other question that you asked about the Puram? About Parvati. That was a literary license in many ways, because usually, this is what I've observed and heard, and I can't say it with complete certainty, but definitely by and large, it is the male elephants that are used to carry the Tidambud, which is the god on its head. And they are the tuskers. And Asian elephants, the females don't have tusks. African elephants sometimes both do. So I have put in a female elephant sort of because I wanted AF to show that, we can have gender role reversals. All of us can carry the god, anybody can do anything these days. And so there was a little bit of that kind of play at play. Parvati, again, it's, as you said, a goddess's name, so I put it in there as well. So a little bit of sort of me and my mischief as bringing in a female elephant, but nothing, not a dig at anything. It's just that I chose to do that, and I'm allowed to do that.
Absolutely, you are, and what a lovely way of doing it. Also, I was thinking that so many of these traditional, traditions associated with festivals. Many of our children, say for example, we have so much in terms of Durga Puja and the Kali Puja and things like that. But if I would ask a young person, not maybe who brought up in Kolkata, that as a Bengali boy or a girl, do you know about these traditions? Forget the rest of the India in detail. Perhaps the answer would not be with much lucidity. So it's very important that not only as a part of our heritage, but also part of our education. We know about these, this lovely, this ornamentation, this gorgeousness, this pageantry, what is actually meant by this kind of procession. All these things are shared with children across the country and across the world, of course.
Yes.
So now I have come to the last of my questions before I ask you to read. And this is, children begin their lives in the midst of a lot of poem, a lot of poetry. Chora, we call it in Bangla, and so ditties. But as they start reading on their own, somehow poetry seems to disappear from their lives. So what is it that you would want the, us adult caregivers, the teachers, the adults, even children themselves to do, to not to let that happen? Because that is a pity, isn't it?
It is a pity. And in fact, I miss the old traditions because my children didn't have as much of it in schools growing up, whereas I did when I grew up. We were all asked to memorize poetry. And it was so wonderful because, poems are like songs, right? And who doesn't like music or songs? And when you memorize a poem and are able to recite it, there is a certain joy in that. And to be honest with you, nowadays, many of us are not able to recite or remember any of these poems other than the ones we learned as children because we've stopped doing that as a skill. So, I think both rhyme, meter, music, poetry is something that children would instinctively love if they were exposed to it. And this book is written in a very simple, it's a story. So children love stories. There is a story, but it's written with simple rhyming couplets so that they can follow along, perhaps be inspired to write their own poems. I've just launched a book less than a month ago, which is called It's Time to Rhyme. And I'm delighted to say that, at every occasion that I've gone and spoken at schools, libraries, bookstores where I've met with children, they've absolutely loved it. And what I've done in a very simple way is introduce 9 poetic forms to children in a unique concept in that I've presented the poem in the form of the poem. So, for instance, a sonnet is written in 14 lines with an octave and a sestet, with the iambic pentameter of da-dum, 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 the long and short syllable, so the children can say, okay, and I said, this is what a sonnet is. Then I've turned the page and given you an example sonnet, which is a delightful, something fun about eating junk food and, throwing away their lunch and, doing kind of mischievous things that resonate with kids. And when the children hear that poem read aloud, they say, we didn't realize that was a sonnet. So, a lot of that, what is around them is poetry. And a lot of what they hear is actually fairly complicated poetic rhymes. They didn't realize it because it's been sort of drilled into them in a very formal structure. So that book is really resonating, and I encourage everyone to also pick that up. Though today, of course, we're talking about Parvati. But, Parvati's rhyme is a simple and beautiful rhyme. And, I'm hoping that it will encourage children when you have end rhymes, in a couplet. That's in some ways the first way to start writing poetry. So I'm hoping that this story is something that will inspire others to write as well.
Lovely. And now the floor is yours, the author of Parvati and Parvati the Elephant.
So children, I'm not going to read you the whole poem because then I'll take away the fun of the adventure. But what I'm going to do is read you the first 2 or 3 pages so that you're excited about the story. Okay? Is that all right with everyone? I hope so. I do notice that a lot of children have been raising their hand. So here we are. And somebody has very sweetly, the tech staff has shown you the picture of the first page, okay? Parvati the elephant jumped out of bed one day, remembering with excitement that it was the 1st of May. Another Purim day was here. It was time for temple festivities. There would be many hours of celebration and many fun activities. Parvati the elephant had to bathe and plan her dress. She'd have to tidy up her space and make sure there was no mess, because she had a very important role to play. And we're going to discover what that role is and what she's going to do very soon. And we'll find out if she was successful. So we're not going to do all the pages, are we, guys? All right. So does anybody have any questions for me? Are they coming in chat? Will somebody ask them to me? Or are children being unmuted?
I'll unmute them one by one.
So who is going to ask me the first question?
Pranika, can you unmute?
Ma'am, I don't want to ask you a question.
Yes,
I
Panika.
like to make poems and stories.
That's wonderful. You like to make it? Are you continuing to do that? What sort of poetry do you write?
I'm not written, but I've thought. A rooster like a cock, a booster like a rock. I have thought and I need to make more.
That's wonderful. Keep doing it. It's so much fun, isn't it? You could even start with writing an acrostic, which is a very fun poem to do, and a lot of children do it, where you write down the letters of a word you want to spell out, and even if it's not rhymed, you can describe what it spells. So that would be an acrostic, like you could write your mother's name and write a poem. Okay, who else?
Shania, can you unmute?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Shania, how are you? Are you Shania?
Yes, ma'am.
What is your question, Shania?
Ma'am, why did the elephant name is Parvati?
Why is that the elephant's name Parvati? Well, that's a good question. And, we discussed it a little bit about whether it's because it's the goddess's name as well. It was, I like multisyllabic names and it works very well with poetry. So a multisyllabic name is Parvati. So there's 3 sounds, right? 3 syllables in that. And Parvati was something that I could rhyme with when I was writing. So I put that in. As a voiceover talent, I read aloud my poetry when I write it, and it needs to have a little musicality with it. So by picking a name like this, I was able to get that musical element. And so many of you that I meet have beautiful musical names like Shania. Who do we have today? Nishka. Hi, Nishka.
Hello, ma'am. Ma'am, I am Nishka Natani from the Palace School, Jaipur.
That's wonderful. Do you like poetry? Do you like stories?
Ma'am, I like to make stories.
That's wonderful. You should keep doing it. Are you writing them down, or are you just thinking about the stories?
I am thinking about the stories now.
So the next thing you can do is maybe in your little notebook, you can start putting your ideas down, and then one day you can write them all into big stories, right?
Yes, ma'am.
One exercise you can do is write 100-word story. That's not a lot of words at all. Why don't you try that, okay? Good
And my
job.
question is, before writing a story, one should decide the moral first or the storyline or script first?
That's a good question. It depends on what it is that you want to do. If you have a good story, it's an imaginative story, it doesn't necessarily have to have a moral, but there is what is called a takeaway from every story we write, right? Meaning the takeaway is either that you had a happy ending, or that you learned something new, or you learned a moral, like in the Panchatantra stories. So we can have many different kinds of takeaways, or it could be that you learned how to laugh because of it, or you learned a lot of new questions. So it's all right to do it in any order that works for you. Thank you. So I understand we have 13 students who have questions to 14 have raised their hand. Who's next? Shive. Is that how I'm saying it? Shivai. Shive?
Shivai.
Shivai. Lovely. Hi, Shivai. How old are you?
5, ma'am.
You're 5? That's wonderful. Nice to meet you.
Sister.
Hello, little one. And you must be 2 years
Hello,
old.
ma'am.
Hi, hi.
Like and पार्वती मैं सबको केप लगा के बिंदी लगा के बहुत सुंदर लगती हूँ.
Oh, how sweet. I bet that's true. Very nice to meet you too.
Ma'am, she always plays the character of Parvati. So when she heard that the name of the story is Parvati, so she is ready to listen your story.
That's wonderful. I'm delighted to see you both.
and
you
she
look like you'll
and she
enjoy it.
loves Ganesha. She is very fond of doing the religious activities like on Ganesh Chaturthi and Ganesh festival. She also knows the poem of Ganesha very much.
That's wonderful. So please read her the story and she can see what elephants and how dressed up they are in a temple tradition. Shiva, did
Yeah.
you have a question, Shiva?
Yes, ma'am.
What is your question, young man?
Ma'am.
Yes.
Shivika.
Is that your question?
Your question, ask the question.
Ma'am, my name is Shivika.
Shivika, hello. Shiva, do you have a question?
It is temple or Ganesh fall.
He is asking in which temple the elephants goes.
So this elephant can actually live in any temple that you want it to live in, but I'm imagining that it lives in South India. Okay. Lovely. Who's next? Hi, who is this? You're not Dr. Neetu Ruhela, are you?
Ma'am, this is my mother's name.
I thought it was. And what?
Ma'am, I want to tell you that I love to write stories. Ma'am, I love to write stories. I write
Wonderful.
a story each day.
Good for you. Please keep it up. You should do it. And if you want to change things up, try writing a poem or try making your story a little bit longer than you've been used to writing. Every day we set a new goal for ourselves, right? So keep up the good work. That's wonderful. Hello, Tanvi.
Hello, ma'am. Ma'am, my name is Tanvi Bajaj. I am from Mahadevi Birla World Academy.
Wonderful. And what is your question?
Ma'am, I wanted to ask that how will I get to know whether I will get the book or not?
That is something you'll have to ask the organizers, sweetheart. I have no idea. Muskaan will tell you probably by the end of the event. Okay?
Ma'am.
Thank you. Anybody else? Hi, Anaisha. Is that your name? Anaisha has to unmute. Ah, perfect.
Ma'am, I love to read mythological stories.
You like mythological stories? In fact, you know, myths are very fun. A lot of children start out by reading, stories from mythology. And there's nothing wrong. You should read whatever it is that interests you. I always say we don't have to force children to read a particular kind of book. Children should read. That's so important. It expands your vocabulary. It helps you to travel to different places. It helps you to use your imagination. It helps you to learn about other cultures, right? So keep reading. Keep reading your mythology. And then and someday try reading something else as well, including Parvati the elephant story. Okay? Lovely.
I also make poems.
Good. Keep doing that. That would be great. Hello, Anaya? Anya?
Ma'am, it's Anaya.
Anaya. Good evening. How are you?
Ma'am, I'm fine. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm enjoying this conversation. What is your question?
Ma'am, my question is that what can Parvati do next?
Very good question. We have to figure it out. I haven't thought about that because this book is about what happened to Parvati in one day. But you're right. Maybe we should think about some other stories for Parvati, and I'll put my thinking hat on and think about something. Okay?
Yes.
Thank you. Hello, Arza.
Hello, ma'am. I have no question, but I just wanted to tell you that my favorite animal is elephant, and I'm glad you have chosen elephant because all the time we read lions or elephants or tiger stories.
Well, I'm so glad you said that. Thank you so much. I had to think about which animal to use, and this is the elephant that I wanted to use because I love elephants. Seeing them in the wild was so amazing, and it's like a large joint family. You know, the herd of elephants is like a large joint family in India, where everybody lives together and they all spend time together. And if one person is sick, the other elephant takes care of the children. It's a very, very special group, the herd, and elephants are very special animals. Thank you. Who's next? Hi, Vivan.
Hi, hello, ma'am. My
Hi,
name is
Vivan.
Vivan Yadav.
Hello, Vivan. How are you? And what is your question?
My question is, why people sell elephant teeth?
Why do people, what did you say?
Why people sell elephant teeth?
Oh, you mean why do they sell the tusk of elephants, right? It's very sad. It's called ivory. And unfortunately, because people have used it to do, to make ornaments and make jewelry and make statues and make other things, the elephant has been preyed on in many parts of the world. And unfortunately, it is the demand. It's the demand of people that cause some of these bad things to happen. So we should all tell ourselves we will not use ivory. We're not going to allow an elephant to be killed in order to make a murti or a statue with ivory. So it's lot of it is, we're all related. We should all be kind to the animal. Hello, is it Ashwin? Who's this? No, Tavish. Tavish?
Hello, ma'am. My name is Shobha Jain. I am from Pinewood School, Saharanpur. My question is that I write many stories, but ma'am, please give me some ideas for my stories.
Could I give you some ideas for stories? I'll tell you, the ideas that come to an author for their stories comes from all around them. So you should, if you have a little sister or a brother, you could write a story about them. If you've had a particular experience somewhere, you can write about that. So ideas should come from what you've read, people you've met, all around. You can even keep an idea diary. You know that some people do that when they write stories. I've heard authors say that they walk around and suddenly an idea comes to them and they write it down in their book. And then eventually they sit and they look at their idea book and there's so many stories there. Good luck. Who's next? Hello, Advik.
Hello. My name is Advik. So I can tell that I have written a half of a story. Half.
I'm sorry, Advik, the connection is very poor. I couldn't understand your question. What did you say again?
I didn't ask a question. I was saying that I have written a half of a story.
Oh, you said you've written half a story. Well, when are you going to complete it? You have to finish the whole story. I'm sure there's lots of readers who want to read your story.
Yeah, actually it's handmade, but
Wonderful. Well, take your time. There's no hurry. A writer has the right to take some time to write their stories, but make sure you finish it because I bet there's a lot of discovery that needs to be done by the readers. Good luck. Hello, Anya. Hello, Anya.
I already have a book on Elfie the elephant.
You have a book on Elfie the elephant? Yes, there are some other elephant stories. That's true, and I know little children who have it as well. That's great. Well, this is going to be a very different elephant, and this elephant story is about what happens to her in a temple and what she does in Kerala. So you're going to learn some new things if you read this story.
If I want the book that you read, then where can I get it from?
You can get it at any bookstore. I don't know which city you're in, but all the major bookstores will carry it. You can buy it directly from the publisher, harpercollins.in. And then if you really can't go anywhere to buy it, you can also get it on Amazon and Flipkart and everywhere else. Hello. Hi, Pramiti. Can you hear me? I can't hear you, honey. You need to make it a little bit louder.
Hello, ma'am.
Hello, Pramiti. What is your question?
My question is why the elephant was so excited?
Why is the elephant so excited? That's for you to find out when you read the book, because she's going to get to do something really special. So she's very excited that she's been chosen to do the very special thing. But I'm not going to give away the story. Anybody else? So how much time do we have left? It's 5:50. Okay. Hi, Manvik. Hello.
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 Hello, Manvik.
Ma'am.
I like your uniform.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
What is your question? Very welcome. What is your question?
Ma'am, why elephants are so big?
Why are elephants so big? I honestly don't know why they're so big, but they definitely are big. And when they're babies, they're a little bit smaller, but it's just an animal that's a large size. Just like you have giraffes that are so tall with a long neck. The reason a giraffe has a long neck is because it reaches very high to get leaves in the Serengeti and in the desert where it's harder to get it. So for that reason, over evolution, the giraffe's neck has become long. Perhaps there's a reason for the elephant as well to do the same thing. I don't know how it became big, but it's big. Sharvi. Hi, Sharvi.
Hi, teacher. Teacher, I am saying I written one story. I written one story about pig and rat.
About a pig and a rat?
Yes.
And do they have an adventure together?
Yes.
That's wonderful. I'm so pleased to hear that. Good. You
Yes.
should keep doing that.
Completed.
Excellent. Excellent. Keep it up, okay? Keep writing. So there are a few people who want to be unmuted. Hi, Damyanti. I guess it's back to you. Thank you.
There are quite a few hands raised still. What we can do perhaps is that, children, you can all put down your questions in the little chat box, or you can send an email send an email. Your parents can help you to send an email to the organizer's email ID. You got a Zoom link, right? So you have an email ID. You can send out all these questions, and ma'am is going to answer your questions. If there is something that you want her help with, maybe she will find a few things to help you with. Otherwise, I'm sure that she will be very eager to hear your questions and hear from you. Right, Shobha?
I'd be very happy to hear from them. And if it's something that I can answer, I'd be happy to do that as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I'd love to hear from all of you what you think about the poem. What is the name of the book? Samrat Pandey, the name of the book is Parvati, the Elephant's Very Important Day.
Yes, I'm holding it. Both of us are holding it. You can take a look at the name.
Right.
And it's really, really lovely. And you see, the part of the fun of reading a book is that nobody should tell you about what happens next. You have to discover for yourself what happens next. And then maybe maybe I think there are about 200, 300 odd children here, 300 plus number. All of you are gathered together, but I'm sure though all of you will read the story, the same story, but you are all going to have different ways of reacting to the story. You like different parts of the story. You might have a different question about a particular, a line that Shobha ma'am has written, and you can have a question for her on that. So this has been a lovely session, Shobha. Really look forward to more from you, and you have to promise us that the children
Absolutely.
definitely would love to have more from your writer's corner.
Thank you. I do appreciate it. It's such a pleasure. One of the joys of being an author is the opportunity to interact with new people, new faces, children all over the country. It's really been a delight. I mean, every time I meet a new moderator or a teacher or an author, it's very exciting. So it's part of the other bonuses of being a writer. And I'm glad I can see for sure, Damyanti, that you are a very successful instructor, educator. We share a similar life philosophy about the role of education, the role of writing, the role of literature, and it's been a real pleasure. Thank you.
Pleasure is all mine, and we will meet together over a cup of coffee when you're in Kolkata next. And over to you, Sumitra.
Yes, that was a wonderful session. We enjoyed it thoroughly, and the children also may have followed some parts of it, because the questions were to a certain extent relevant. They've spoken about what they've done. That's really sweet of them. I would request both of you, if you could just hold your books up so that the children can have a look at so all the children, you can see what the book looks like. It's a beautiful book with a lovely picture of Parvati. And so in case you want to read it, buy it, you know what it looks like. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. So I guess we come to the end of this session. It's on behalf of the foundation, I would like to thank Ms. Damyanti and Ms. Shobha, both of you, for this amazing, interactive and engaging session. I would also like to thank our presenter, Sri Cement Limited, and Education for All Trust, and publisher HarperCollins. Last but not the least, I would also like to thank our young listeners. Without their enthusiasm, this session would not have been successful. So thank you once again to both of you. Thank you, Ms. Tharoor. Thank you, Ms. Mukherjee. Stay well, stay safe, everybody. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Sumitra. Bye. I hope to see you again.
Yes. Hope to see you in person when you're here, ma'am.
Yes. You're also in Kolkata, Sumitra?
Yes.
We must do that once more. Yes. I'm always ready to come to Cal.
Most welcome. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, children.